Chapter 1. The time has come. Enrico and Caruso, the guinea pigs, have settled down at last. Old William the tomcat has retired to his blanket for the night, and Mr. John has gone out. Now is the time to make a start on my life story. Like any reasonable, intelligent writer, of course, I'm wondering if anyone will be interested in what I have to tell. Is my story worth putting down on paper? I think so. A pretty bright youngster grows up in a kind of a prison, is sold, gets shunted back and forth a few times, eventually manages to escape, and is smart enough to gain his freedom. If that isn't a story, what is? Like any reasonable, intelligent writer, of course I use a computer. Mr. John has given me his password. Nice of him, but quite unnecessary. I cracked his password long ago. I can crack anything. Anything, that is to say, from passwords to sunflower seeds and mealworms. Okay, so mealworms don't have shells, but they're a delicacy we get far too seldom around here. Creatures like us, that is. That's why I mentioned them here. Well, maybe I should tell you. I'm a hamster. More precisely, a golden hamster. Our kind has much in common. Our kind has as much in common with the common field hamster as, let's say, a modern computer has with an old-fashioned hand-cranked calculator. We golden hamsters are pretty unique, but more on that later. No one will turn a somersault in surprise, I guess, as if I reveal that my birthplace was a cage. Up to now, or so it seemed, a golden hamster had no choice but to be born in captivity, while away his little treadwheel of a life in a cage, and go into eternal hibernation there. The cage containing my native burrow was situated in a pet shop. Great-grandmother often said we should get down on our paws and give thanks to the patron saint of hamsters for that reason. "Children," she told us youngsters, "in here you'll get regular meals and a cleaning service as part of the bargain." Great-grandmother had once been compelled to live in a cage belonging to a girl who, according to her, was as dirty as a guinea pig and as lazy as a neutered cat. No regular meals, no cleaning services either. Great-grandmother very nearly went into eternal hibernation before her time. I'd like at this stage to make something absolutely clear. A hamster's three worst enemies are A, shortage of food, B, dirt, and C, shortage of food. That's why no golden hamster ever passes up a mealworm unless it smells moldy. Nor does he locate his John, for any biology teacher who happens to be reading this along with you, his defecation place, anywhere in the neighborhood of food. Or other animals, guinea pigs for instance, aren't as fussy in this respect. I was born the 6th in a litter of 10. I shall pass over those first few days of darkness, when all that we blind and naked youngsters did was jostle and scuffle to get at our sources of nourishment, were there 8 of them. If I could remember correctly, at any rate, I didn't become a genuine golden hamster until my eyes opened. But unfortunately, my brothers and sisters' eyes opened too, and then the jostling began. I know, biology teachers call these scuffles mock trials of strength, and they're supposed to be genetically programmed, but maybe I found them irritating. It wasn't that I couldn't hold my own. I simply preferred to think my own thoughts in peace. Believe it or not, I wondered even then why golden hamsters had to live in cages. Not that I came to any earth-shattering conclusions. Until great-grandmother took me in hand one day. There, and I'd really meant to write about the golden hamster saga at this point. Still, as an author, I can imagine that my readers would prefer an action sequence first. So next, I'll describe how I became to be sold. Chapter 2. Sometime before I was sold, great-grandmother went into eternal hibernation. At first I thought she was simply taking an unusually long time to wake up. The pet shop's fat sales clerk knew at once what was wrong, however, and before I could utter a squeak, great-grandmother had disappeared. I took it hard. Unlike the rest of our clan, who barely even noticed, golden hamsters, as great-grandmother had often told me, are loners by nature. I missed great-grandmother. With her, I'd been able to discuss every aspect of golden hamsterdom. When I tried to do this with my fellow hamsters, my lack of success was spectacular. "Discuss things," I was told. "Nah, I just work out. You should try it yourself." Beat my brains out on the treadwheel? No thanks, buddy, not me. Besides, There was only one such contraption in the cage, and the treadwheel freaks were always lining up in front of it, or rather biting and shoving one another aside. Biting had become all the rage with my fellow hamsters. Mock trials of strength were a thing of the past. Now, everyone was eager to wage regular territorial wars, as biology teachers call them, except that there weren't any territories to fight for. The cage was far too small. Tough luck for the commandos among us, though, fortunate for the rest of us, or some of us would have been killed. The atmosphere in the cage grew worse and worse. We tried to steer clear of one another, but the only way to do that, as we soon discovered, was to hunker down and just stay put. Total apathy set in. It affected me too. Sometimes even thinking failed to help. I racked my brain, but no answers came. My thoughts went around and around in circles, until one day, in the midst of a circle, an idea took shape. The idea grew steadily bigger and more distinct until I finally saw it was with crystal clarity. I must get away. I must get out of this cage. I must find a buyer. Of course, that was the answer. Why hadn't I thought of it before? Probably because being sold was rather like going into eternal hibernation. You simply just disappeared, and nobody minded much. It was clear, at any rate, that the next golden hamster in our cage to be sold must be me. This wouldn't happen on its own accord, though. It would require careful planning. One thing I knew for certain, as soon as the next customer appeared in front of our cage, my beloved brothers and sisters would also reflect on the dreariness of life inside and think it might make a welcome change. To be sold. Me, 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 they would squeak, turning somersaults, leaping into the air, and sprinting away on the treadwheel, just to draw attention to themselves. When that happened, one particular hamster, yours truly, would catch the customer's eyes by doing something altogether different. The only question was, what? For the first time ever, I took careful note of the television screen mounted high up on the wall in the corner of the shop. It was showing a wildlife video over and over, a lousy, boring film of ornamental fish sluggishly swimming around, brightly colored parrots squawking in treetops, and mountain goats butting one another like maniacs. But there were also some scenes from a zoo. The caged monkey's behavior shed a very informative light on the relationship between humans and animals. As for the bears in their enclosure, they begged for food in an extremely undignified but highly successful manner. I watched the part of the movie several times, then I was ready. The next hamster buyer could roll in now, except that he didn't. It was like a jinx. The demand for golden hamsters seemed to have hit rock bottom. Any number of whistling guinea pigs, squawking parrots, and dumb tortoises were bought and handed over the counter. What do people actually do with horses anyways? Indeed, even the Siamese cat found a buyer, when everyone in the store knew she was riddled with worms, but nobody wanted a hamster. Still, I remained on my toes. Be patient, I told myself. Purely statistically, the probability that someone would come looking for a hamster was becoming greater hour by hour. And then I nearly overslept. It was late afternoon, hardly a hamster's most active time of day, and I'd retired to my burrow for a nap. I was aroused by loud squeaks, the patter of prancing paws, and the rattle of the treadwheel rotating at top speed. I awoke with a start and saw at a glance that the time had come. Or had I already missed it? The fat sales clerk was looking down into the cage, and beside him stood a man with a mustache. I detected a pleasant scent of nutmeg. My fellow hamsters were behaving exactly as I had foreseen. I breathed a sigh of relief. No decision had been made yet. I was just about to go into my routine when I heard the sales clerk ask, "How old are your little girls?" I stopped short. "She's nearly 6, said the man with the mustache. Too young, I thought to myself, far too young. "Just the right age," said the sales clerk. "The thing is," said the mustache, "I want to teach her a sense of responsibility." Ah, so she was probably as dirty as a guinea pig and as lazy as a neutered tomcat, I thought. "She spends a lot of time on her own, you see," the mustache went on. "Great," said the sale clerk. "So now she'll have a playmate." Bad, I thought. She'll tote me around all the time. "Her name's Sophia," said the mustache. What did I care about that? I don't need her name. "And you know what?" the mustache went on. "Although she's only just learning to read, She asked me to get a book about caring for golden hamsters. That settled it for me. I launched into my routine. While my cage mates were squeaking and turning somersaults, prancing around and pounding away on the treadwheel, I darted into the middle of the cage. Then I sat up and begged like those bears do in the zoo. Sit up and beg, and humans will fall for it hook, line, and sinker. Heaven knows what goes on inside their heads. Do you think a hamster on its hind legs look like a miniature teddy bear or something? Whatever the truth, I stood there straight as a ramrod. Then I opened my little eyes so wide they almost popped out of their sockets. Eyes like little black buttons. How sweet, I thought to myself. My mouth slightly open. How fetching. Lips and whiskers twitching. How cute. Oh, look, it's cleaning its little face with its little paws. How utterly adorable I was. Well, the mustache pointed me out. That one looks nice. A little placid, though, compared to the others. What? I sprang up into the air. Then I performed a second leap, this time adding an aerial somersault, another of the tricks that I'd been rehearsing. The sales clerk laughed. Placid? Huh, he's the liveliest one we've got. The idiot. He'd ruin everything if he wasn't careful. Sure enough, the mustache turned suspicious. Are you in a hurry to get rid of him? That was it. What to do now? Quickly, I performed yet another trick. I'd been practicing especially hard. I doubt if any golden hamster had ever pulled it off before. Still in the sit-up and beg position, I raised my right paw as high as it would go, then waved. Yes, I waved, like those shameless bears. The mustache laughed. Okay, he said. He'll do. What followed was the worst time of my life. Yet it began quite harmlessly, even pleasantly. I was shut up in a fairly small box, but then hamsters are fond of confined spaces. Next, the box started to move. Only a little at first, but soon with such violence that it proved too much for my sense of balance. I was shaken around until I felt thoroughly nauseous. I now know that I was being transported in an automobile. Sick with fear and dismay, all I heard at the time was a nasty humming sound. At some point, it seemed an eternity later, the humming and shaking ceased. My box was picked up, shaken around some more, and then put down. I heard the mustache call, Sophie, I've got something for you. What is it, Daddy? There it was, the voice of my future mistress. Me, I couldn't have cared less. It was all I could do to avoid throwing up in my box at the moment. Here, I heard the mustache say. See for yourself, but be careful. Oh, Daddy, could it be? Sophie broke off, and the lid of my box was folded back open. There, I cowered flat as a squashed cockroach, blinking in the light like a half-witted chipmunk. A golden hamster! Oh, Daddy, he's so cute! Save your breath, little girl. I know just how cute I am. Mom, look! I was still dazzled, but little by little, I made out some details. There was the mustache guy, and, standing beside him, Sophie. She was fair-haired and smelled of fresh sunflower seeds. She looked nice and healthy somehow. Just the opposite of myself at the moment. Then someone else appeared. Also fair-haired, but much taller than Sophie. No smell of fresh sunflower seeds either, just a faint scent of lavender. Look, Mom, my hamster! Mom bent over, and the smell of the lavender became stronger. She said. He doesn't look too chipper to me. More like he's sick. Bingo, Mom. Gregory, are you sure they didn't pull a fast one on you? Very sure, said the mustache, whose name, it seemed, was Gregory. He was in great shape at the store. Well, he isn't now, said Mom. And besides, you both know I wasn't crazy about this idea in the first place. A creature like this could bring diseases into the house, and that's not a risk I care to take. Gregory, I'm afraid you're going to have to take him back. Mom, no, pleaded Sophie. Bring diseases into this house. Honestly, Louise, said Gregory. He'll be fine. The trip in the car shook him up a bit, that's all. You should sympathize. You're always feeling car sick yourself. Bravo, Gregory. Give it to her straight, I said. This is different, she said. Okay, have it your way, but But if that animal isn't hale and hearty by tomorrow morning at the latest, you'll have to take it back. We'll see, was all that Gregory said. Sophie said nothing, carefully picking me up in the hollow of her hand. She couldn't have done it better. She carried me over to a cage and put me down inside. There, she said. Have a nice sleep. She didn't chatter. She didn't try to play with me. She just left me in peace. You're one in a million, Sophie, I thought.